All right, welcome. Let's just dive right into this explainer. Today we're exploring a seriously fascinating clash between the seemingly random laws of quantum physics and the predictability of human destiny. It sounds like a total paradox, doesn't it? On one hand, modern science tells us the universe, at its absolute smallest level, is inherently uncertain and completely chaotic. But on the other hand, traditional wisdom suggests that our actions create inevitable, predictable outcomes. So which is it? Are we totally at the mercy of microscopic randomness, or is the trajectory of our lives actually predetermined by the choices we make? Today, we're unpacking a really intriguing piece of source material that tackles this exact tension. We've got a great roadmap ahead for you. We'll start with the destiny debate, tackle the quantum dilemma, contrast micro versus macro, look at magnetizing the random, explore cause and effect, and finally wrap up with a determined destination. So part 1, the destiny debate. Predicting the trajectory of life. Now, the author lays out a pretty powerful foundation right off the bat. Based on the theorem of the conservation of energy, they argue that everything we do, our psychological activities, our behaviors, the words we use, even our basic attitudes and postures, it's all essentially a buildup of energy. It's that classic idea of you reap what you sow, right? Because of this energetic ledger, the author proposes that a person's life trajectory, their future scenarios, and ultimately their destiny are entirely predictable. You put out a specific energy, you get a specific, guaranteed result. But, this is exactly where skeptics push back. They look at this idea of a guaranteed, predictable destiny and go, wait, hold on a second. They point straight to modern physics. Their argument is that because the microscopic universe, literally the building blocks of our reality, is inherently random and governed by uncertainty, then human destiny has to be completely unpredictable too. I mean, how can our lives be perfectly predictable if the very atoms making us up are fundamentally chaotic? Which brings us to part 2, the quantum dilemma. Demystifying the microscopic world. First step, let's do a quick refresher on Brownian motion. You've probably heard of this. It's that incredibly chaotic, aimless way molecules just sort of bounce off one another under a microscope. It's basically the physical embodiment of randomness. No fixed path, no destination, just endless, erratic collisions. Next, we have the quantum. And just as a quick reminder, we aren't talking about physical matter like atoms or electrons here. We're talking about a discrete packet or unit of energy. This means energy exists in distinct, indivisible little packets instead of a continuous, flowing stream. And honestly, discovering that completely shattered classical ideas about how energy works. And that lays the exact groundwork for the uncertainty principle. So in classical Newtonian physics, you can easily pinpoint a speeding object's location and speed. But the microscopic world, it totally breaks that rule. If you figure out a particle's exact speed, its location becomes completely unknowable. And if you pinpoint its location, well, its speed becomes a total mystery. You just can't pin them both down at the same time. Which leads us right to the famous Schrödinger's cat thought experiment. The whole idea of superposition, where a particle, or a cat in a box, hasn't actually picked a state until it's observed. This is exactly why skeptics argue that life, which is built on these very particles, has to be fundamentally unpredictable. If our foundation is existing in multiple states at once, how on earth can the macrostructure have a guaranteed destiny? Let's look at part 3, micro versus macro. Does scale actually matter? To really make sense of our reality here, the author says we have to distinctly separate the scales. On one hand, you have the microscopic world. That's governed by unpredictable photons, weave particle duality, and that uncertainty principle we just talked about. But on the other hand, you have the macroscopic world, the human-sized world. This is the realm of Newtonian mechanics where, 5 plus 3 is always going to securely equal 8. The core argument here is that you simply cannot apply the chaotic rules of the tiny microscopic side to the concrete reality of our everyday macroscopic side. Let's ground this in a real-world example from the text. Driving a car relies entirely on classical mechanics. Say you're exactly 300 kilometers away from home, and you drive a steady 100 kilometers per hour. You are going to arrive in exactly 3 hours. Your arrival time isn't some random quantum probability. You aren't existing in a superposition of being on the couch and still out on the highway. Your arrival is a definite, calculable certainty. The author also uses this really fantastic comparison to show why we can't judge the whole by its tiniest parts. Obviously, the human body contains electrons, which do have wave-particle duality, but look at graphite and a diamond. They are both made entirely of the exact same thing, carbon atoms. Yet graphite is soft enough to write with, and a diamond is literally one of the hardest materials on Earth. You cannot infer the properties of a macroscopic object from its microscopic parts. It's a great point. You'd never treat a pencil tip like a diamond, even though down at the quantum level, they are built from the exact same stuff. Moving on to part 4, magnetizing the random, finding direction in chaos. So the source argues that microscopic randomness really only dominates when forces are perfectly equal. Think about an iron rod. Normally, its internal electrons are completely chaotic, but apply a strong electric current to it and boom, it magnetizes. All those previously random electrons suddenly align perfectly. Order completely replaces chaos the very moment direction is applied. Let's translate that idea over to humans. Imagine a really crowded, bustling train station right at rush hour. If you're looking down from a balcony high above, the crowd looks exactly like that erratic Brownian motion we discussed earlier. People just dodging, weaving, and colliding aimlessly. But that's just a surface-level illusion. Down on the ground, every single person in that crowd has a ticket. They are all heading to a very specific, predetermined destination. So while the overarching view looks like pure chaos, individual intent creates absolute certainty. Part 5, Cause and Effect, the inevitability of destiny. In our macroscopic human world, causes have definitive, undeniable effects. Our source material maps this out super clearly. If an official accepts bribes, the inevitable outcome is imprisonment. If someone is deeply lazy and selfish, it leads to a lack of resources. If someone frequents the casino every single day, well, they'll eventually lose everything. And most naturally, if you plant a watermelon seed, you get a watermelon. As the author points out, no one can use quantum physics to argue that, hey, if you plant a watermelon seed, maybe, just maybe, because of quantum uncertainty, a rose is going to grow instead. It simply does not work that way. Which brings us to our final section, Part 6, a determined destination, directing the future. Using a really practical travel metaphor, the source makes the predictability of destiny incredibly clear. If you announce a trip to South Africa, and then you actually take the sequential steps, you process the visa, buy the plane ticket, pack your bags, and board the right plane, you are going to arrive in South Africa. You can't claim your destination is uncertain or that you might magically wake up in the UK because of quantum mechanics. Macroscopic intent, backed by action, guarantees the destination. The author then applies this exact concept to their spiritual followers, who they refer to as the Lifechanyuan celestials. Drawing on those physics metaphors we just explored, the author explains that providing a specific life view, values, and spiritual direction acts exactly like passing that electric current through the iron rod. It magnetizes the previously random movement of the followers. By infusing this direction, the author argues that it guarantees their eventual unified destination, which they call the Celestial Islands continent. Basically, in the author's framework, randomness is entirely replaced by a determined spiritual trajectory. To wrap up this explainer, we want to leave you with a rather profound thought from the ancient philosopher Lao Tzu, which the author actually references. It goes, "To know the consequences of future lives, look at what you are doing in this life." It's a pretty powerful summary of everything we've covered today. While the microscopic universe might dance to the tune of uncertainty, your macroscopic life is governed by cause and effect. So, the ultimate question is this: if the macroscopic world is truly predictable, what do your daily actions, right now at this very moment, guarantee about your future destination? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this explainer. Keep learning, and we'll see you next time.